Welcome back to another episode of the Match Stats Show, wrestling's version of Moneyball. Along with Glenn Gormley and Kevin Hazard, I'm Jason Bryant. And today, this is the annual Me Show. And when I say Me Show, I mean this is the precursor to the NCAA championships, the stats, the facts, the figures, all the things that we talk about on this show all year long. A lot of it is based on the NCAA championships. Well, for the past 12 years, I have provided a product for the wrestling community, which has basically just been boiled down to its common name, The Guide. It is the officially named as the Mat Talk Online Division I Wrestling Championship Preview Guide. It's basically just been called The Guide. I'm not sure who came up with that. It might have been Jim Gibbons. It might have been Shane Sparks. It might have been somebody, Adam Amin from ESPN. It might have been Jerry Daniels, who used to be in the truck. I'm not sure who came up with calling it The Guide. Like, hey, when's The Guide going to be ready? So now I'm just calling it The Guide because that's what it is. You see it there on the screen if you are watching the video version. If you're not watching, you can check that out at wrestlingpreviewguide.com. So this is a digital accompaniment. It's not endorsed by the NCAA, but it has every NCAA statistic for the season in there and some caveats that it is every match that the committee uses. The at-large is everything. D1 versus D1 because we know matches against high school don't count. Matches against the post-collegians don't count. Matches against teammates no longer count. Matches against non-D1 opponents count for your official record, but they do not count for qualification records. So this is the tournament's statistics in a digital format. So that's how I've been doing it. That's what it is. That's what we're talking about today on the Match Stats Show. We're going to go diving into sections of it. But Glenn, you used to own a bar, and it was called the Greenleaf Cafe. Again, good people, good food, bad parking, right there in Williamsburg, Virginia. And the concept of this show came from an email I actually got the other day. I got it from newspapers.com, which is a resource that I use for a lot of research. And it was about Guinness. Now, you as a bar owner know that Guinness is a very popular libation worldwide, but I did not know until the other day that Guinness, the beer, and Guinness, the Book of World Records, are one and the same. And being a trivia guy, I'm stunned. My wife was stunned that I did not know this. So basically the generational or the germination of the Guinness Book of World Records came around bar arguments about data, about facts. And Glenn, sitting at the Greenleaf for over 25 years, you've had your share of bar arguments. And being a wrestling guy for even longer, there is no shortage of bar wrestling arguments we've gotten in over the years. So that's where we're going with this.
Yes, Jace, that's quite true. I remember, oh God, it was in the 80s when I was owning the Leaf, and one of the Guinness distributors came in and told me that story that Jason just relayed. So I've known that for years, but of course I've sold a decent amount of Guinness in my day. And some to Jason and some to Kevin.
Yeah, and even in my younger days where I wasn't appreciating the differences between stouts, lagers, ambers, Bocks, Belgian Strongs, and such. Now I'm a bit of a connoisseur of the craft beers. Sometimes, so to go backwards a little bit, I have a bar, I have a speakeasy. This is where I shoot my side of the show from. I built it right in preparation after renovation for 2020, which we know we didn't have a chance to have an after party here in the speakeasy. And throughout the course of that year, I was sampling all styles of Minnesota beers. So when I had people over after the championships, because I don't get to do a lot of socializing during the tournament because me and Brian are announcing. So we get Tuesday, maybe a little bit Wednesday, and then we're basically sequestered. So not sequestered by choice. We just make the adult decision to not consume things. And you can hear my voice a little raspy. I'm coming off of D3s and a hockey game this weekend. So I had the bar built, and I had the perfect beer fridge set, the perfect Minnesota beer fridge. If you liked an IPA, I had my favorite IPA. If you liked a Hefeweizen, which even though it's not really in season, you can get that. I searched the entire state's brewery lines as best I could, given where we're at, for the perfect Minnesota stout, because wintertime is still stout season. We're moving into the more of like the cold snap season. We're starting to get into the wheats again as we warm up. But I searched for the perfect Minnesota stout, mainly for me, but my wife likes Guinness, and I wanted to have a beer in the fridge for her. Well, guess what? I don't know how many I tried. It's like, hey, Abby, try this. We tried dessert stouts. We tried, dry stouts. We tried, more porters. What was the winner, Glenn? What was the ultimate beer that the ultimate stout my
I would
wife would
say
prefer in the
New
fridge?
Paltz Brewery. New Paltz has a lot of nice breweries up there. What was your winner in Minnesota? Go ahead, tell me. I can't guess what your winner was.
No, it was for my wife's choice was Guinness. And you know
Oh,
what?
Guinness. Okay.
There's always going to be a Guinness in my fridge. So that kind of contributes into this situation where Guinness, the Book of World Records, Guinness the beer, Guinness the stout. You've got to have the perfect pour for the Guinness. There's a process involved to it. You do not sit there and order 4 Guinnesses from the bar and expect to get them like quickly. Matter of fact, Brian and I did that at the Big Tens. We both ordered a Guinness, and it took a little while to get there. So they poured it right. So that is the beer
Let me
related.
interject here real.
Go ahead.
Guinness is the best poured beer as a bar owner because there's the least waste. So you get more profit out of Guinness than you get the other beers because the way the nitrogen is required with the Guinness keg, it's a bar owner's dream beer.
Yeah, it's on nitro. It's got those tiny bubbles. So also, if you ever order
Yep.
beer that's on nitro, just be prepared to wait because it's worth it. You get the and if you've got some facial hair, you get the flavor saver will sit there and just like stick there, and you got to always have a napkin with anything on nitro. So as we've gotten to the beer, that's where we're at today again. So before we even get any further, we have a promo code. So right now, this right now as we stand is 258 pages deep. If you print it, I recommend front and back draft mode. If you want to kill your printer ink, go print it in color. If you don't, just go draft mode, black and white. If you want to take it to like a FedEx office or UPS store, it's going to cost you about $25 to print. So know that, or you can do it that way. So, or if you have access to your office printer that your coworkers don't mind, or your boss is out playing golf that day, I'd say do that. Don't print it at home. Use those resources because it's a hefty thing. So right now, currently at 258 pages. This could change by the time it is released Tuesday. So we're recording this on Monday, March 18th. Release is officially Tuesday, March 19th. Well, I don't even know. Yeah, Tuesday, March 19th is when it will officially be released. WrestlingPreviewGuide.com. And viewers of this show, use the promo code MattStats. You'll save $10. It retails for $30. Yes, $30, but 258 pages compared to the NCAA Championships program. It's not even close. You will not find more information in any one place about the Division I championships than this. 12 years. ESPN uses this book. The head table uses this book. So the sideline reporters use this book. The media, it gets used. I mean, people use this year round for research because the historical significance of this document is pretty tangible. Again, I put my reputation on this stuff. And if you get it and you find a typo, you find an error, don't hesitate to email me because I am still finding historical results that are incorrect or names that are wrong from events in the 50s and 60s that I'll stumble across and I'll find something that I need to change. So history and stats evolve and they get tweaked and they get fixed over time. So if you find something in this thing that's wrong, let me know because I love correcting things because that tells me where it was wrong, and it often leads me down to another rabbit hole of fixing something else, or it gives me to think, oh, well, how about this? So that's kind of what this all morphed into.
Let me say that I've been using the guy. I think I was a member since the first year, and I just want to just emphasize the point that Jason just made. It is the best guide. If you do a little fun thing at the tournament, this is the best guide to use. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and since I work for the
Yeah.
NCAA, I'm not a gambling guy anyway. But if you want to do your fan pick'em pools or your pick'em challenges and stuff, and you need a resource, there isn't one better than this. Especially if you're in a room and you're trying to look up WrestleStat or something on your phone and all that stuff. But no, it's all right here. Just flip the page. Or if you've got the digital version, the table of contents, you click on it and it'll take you right to. It's an interactive bracket. So it also links to the late Jay Hammond's WrestlingStats.com brackets. So while the guide itself, the printed version, 258 pages, does not include every bracket from history, it provides a link to every bracket of the NCAA championships in history. So you can quickly go look up 1963's championship, or you can go look up, what else happened in 1970 when Gable got beat by Owings. So all sorts of access points as well.
Yeah, and it's let me just say this, Jason. I'm the analytical guy on the stats thing, But this is like Christmas when I get the guide every year from Jason, because you cannot do any stat analytics without the data provided to you. And when I need data, I go to Jason because he's the biggest compiler of data in the wrestling world I've ever met. And this guide has it all there for the men's D1 Nationals. If you're going to the D1 Nationals, you need this guide.
And Glenn, to our theme where we got kind of a little off track, because we do that when we geek out about wrestling stuff. And just like topics at the bar trivia, Guinness Book of World Records, it all stemmed over stats, facts, and random trivia. So we're going to kind of give Glenn the calm here a little bit. Glenn and Kevin are going to throw some questions at the group, and that group being me. And while I'll be honest with you, I've been busy this week trying to put this thing together and get it out. So I may not have them all off the top of my head, but there are things that you will be able to find in this guide. They're going to throw this way, and we'll see if we can find them. And if they're not, I can tell you where they're at. And if not, it's like, well, we'll add that next year. So I'm constantly adding it. I remember the first year I did it, I think it was maybe 50 pages. And it was great then. New additions this year, I've added the number of high school state titles these wrestlers have won. That's always a common question. How many wrestlers weren't state champions? I have that. How many wrestlers placed in Fargo? Willie over at Mad Scouts sent me his big board rankings back since like 2018. So I can tell you what their prospect ranking was, how good they were coming out of high school, according to Willie's rankings. So all those things are in there. So Glenn, are you ready to play moderator here and just see what we can find here?
I'm playing moderator today, and Jason's giving us the answers. Jason, I want to start it out with this. How long have you and Bryant Hazard been the lead announcers at NCAA?
We started in 2016, and that is a new addition to the page, the guide this year. So since 1973, the NCAA has had a lead announcer or a pair of announcers. Those of you that are older than 40, and I use that because I'm 44, and I started going in 2002, which is the year Ed did not announce it. Ed Aliverti was the longtime announcer. So if we go to page 14, I give you a brief announcing history. I call it Speaking Up because it's a pun. So Ed Aliverti started in 1973 when it was in Seattle. He wrestled. He announced this tournament until 2000. Sandy joined Ed in Ames in 1982. Let's see, it was there, 1982. I believe she told me it was Ames or Iowa City. Yes, Ames in 1982. That's in there. And there's a you know, if you're watching, you see the picture of Ed and Sandy. If you're listening, there's kind of an iconic picture of Ed and Sandy. I believe that's logo on her lapel there. I think that was 99. That might be the logo from 99 or 2000. But Ed and Sandy were the voices of this thing together from 82 to 2000. Sandy announced with Don Blasingame for 2 years, and Don was the Oklahoma, the too proud and too strong. Don's a great man, great booming voice. Todd Hibbs was on the mic for 10 years with Sandy through Kansas City. Actually, he started in Kansas City in 03. Then A.L. Hazlip, another great Oklahoma State wrestling announcer, finished out the run. And then Brian Hazard and I, Kevin's progeny there, took over in 2016, and we've been doing it together ever since. We've just finished up the Big Tens together 2 weeks ago. We did the D3s this past weekend together. So 2016 to now is where we've been manning it, and we use it frequently to pull stats, facts, and figures out when we throw the bad dad jokes, but we back it up with statistics. It's not just us trying to hear us talk. We're there to educate because we know a lot of you people there know a lot more about wrestling than we do, especially me. Brian wrestled at the Division I level. I never started a high school match in my life. So when it comes to the wrestling knowledge, I need to give you something that you don't know more than me at, and that's the data. So that's where that's where my value is too with the
All right, quick question. Is there any chance that you and Brian will sing the national anthem like Ed used to?
No. No. Just not going to happen. I know Brian has done the anthem before. I've thought about having it in my arsenal just in case, mainly at hockey. If there's something happens to the PA system and the music can't play or something like that, and we don't have somebody singing, I've thought about being able to try to be able to do it, but I've never been a singer. I can rock some karaoke badly, and I've done it worldwide, but no. And I know Brian said he's done it, and here's another thing. When it comes to those who came before us, like I pay homage to Ed in the way I call a fall. We pay tribute to Sandy with the tradition she helped start with the how many years you've been to the national championships. We pay tribute to Todd Hibbs, who started the senior send-off, which we've brought to every division that we announce now. So if you're a senior and you're a place winner coming off the mat in that 5th through 8th place round, you're a senior, win or lose, we're recognizing you who you are. It's been kind of tough in these COVID years. So while, we have our own styles, but we definitely honor and pay homage to those who came before us with certain things. But I'm never gonna sing America the Beautiful, because I will never. Well, one, I can't carry a tune, and Ed. First time I heard Ed do America at the Virginia Duels, it was life changing.
Yeah, he was so good.
Yeah, Ed could really sing. We all miss Ed. Okay, now you've really told us that what inspired you to the guide and stuff like that, Jason. I really appreciate that, because a lot of people are wondering this. But the biggest question I've gotten from people, and of course, there's another sport going on now with an NCAA championship that everyone just talks about the seeds and stuff. I've gotten so many questions from William & Mary alumni. Could you explain as best as you can, because you know more about the subject than this, how are the seeds done? How is the seeding done? What determines them?
All right, so we got a formula, and I just made sure I got a primer on this before we started, because it's a lot of it's formulaic. It's not 20 coaches in a room. It's not 20 coaches with sheets anymore. It is mostly formulaic with a committee to talk about things when they get close. So here are the criteria and the percentage that go into the seeding formula. You get 100 points. 33 wrestlers are put on a board per weight class. And I'm using board, more or less, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not rhetorically, but kind of like, figuratively here. So head-to-head, 25% of your points are coming from head-to-head. Quality wins are 20%. 15% come from your conference tournament placing. Remember that. Conference tournament placing, that was 15% of your total. That is a change from last year. It used to be coach's rank was 15%. Now, coach's rank is 10%. Common opponents is 10%. Win percentage is 10%. And RPI, a rating percentage index, which is a measure of your win percentage, your opponent's win percentage, and your opponent's win percentage. Loosely termed a strength of schedule, but it just basically you're not beating up on the sisters of the poor. So it's a rating. It is not a ranking. It doesn't tell you who the better wrestler is. It just says who's got the long-term battle of, kind of better competition. Now, that is also at the bottom of the list of these 7 criteria. So you get 100 points to play with, or 100 percentage points. All those 33 are put on a board. Again, that figurative board there. And they're all compared against the field. So it's not 1-to-1, 1-to-1. You're not comparing, okay, who's the one? We throw 4 names up and then argue. You're thrown in there. And then when you get those points breaking out, if you're within 3 points, so if, say, wrestler A has 40 points, wrestler B, so if your number 1 has 40 and wrestler 2 has 35, guess what? There's no discussion that you're number 1. So then you go 2. All right, well, they've got 35, and then the third person has 34, and then 33, and then they go down to 30. So then those 3 in there in that middle, they get compared against one another to determine the 2 seed. So they go through all those things. Now, if there's a tie, they go to another set of things. They weigh things like your matches against wrestlers in the field. They call them quality wins, which are determined as wrestlers who've qualified for the tournament, wrestlers in the field. Bad losses are losses to wrestlers that aren't in the tournament, or wrestlers who may be in the tournament that have under 500 records. So there's different tiers of how they compare it. But again, so say we got one, you're looking 1-to-1. So we're arguing who the 2 and 3 seed is. Well, I've got you on head-to-head. I win that one. I get a point. We're tied here. We both get half a point. I win here. I get a point. So when you compare each other, then you look at the points total together in those criteria. So a lot of it's math. Now, when we get to ties and things of that nature, that's where we look at it. We go deeper. We analyze data. I know it looks like in case of 174, you have 3 returning champions or you're never a former champ, but you're a past champ on one side of the bracket. What you did last year means nothing. And I know that's a hard pill for some people to swallow. Well, but guess what?
That was the question I was going to ask.
It's about this year.
It's 0, right?
Because years ago, when we had and I hate to use smoke-filled rooms because I don't really know in the last 25 years any wrestling coaches that have smoked, unless they're in Russia. the rooms, the old seating meetings. I mean, I've just heard nightmare stories about how these coaches would just kind of screw each other over with the seatings, and then, and it would get nasty. It would get ugly in those meetings. Friendships are broken and things like that. Now, you can blame the math, but the rules are the way they are because of what we've had laid out in front of us. No more manipulating, trying to, I'll be honest with you. There were coaches who called me when I was doing the national rankings at Intermat to try to get me to change a ranking or say, here's the ranking. Here's why we think it should be ranking, because our seeds use your ranking. Our tournament uses your rankings as seeds. They're trying to manipulate the media to change rankings to get better seeds at their tournament. Well, here, that's not going to happen. You take he's a 4-time national qualifier. Yeah, he's compared against a freshman, so that's not a fair comparison. He's got more bites at the apple. So it takes a lot of it. And some people say it takes common sense out of it. No, it might look optically bad. I'm not going to say it doesn't, and I'm not really going to say it's a perfect system. But here's the thing. In the case of like Carter, which is the one a lot of people are just focusing on, he did not wrestle. Forfeits was a big problem 2 years ago and last year. Well, now they've solved that because too many people were trying to manipulate the system. A lot of our wrestling coaches love to find a rule and exploit it immediately. So, you make a rule, well, then you make a rule, and then you make another rule, and you make another rule, and this is what we have because this is our own doing. So remember that, folks. So last year doesn't mean anything. It's what you did this year. That's your resume. Your resume is your 15 matches.
Question about Starachi.
Mm-hmm.
He went on the mats. They ran 2 seconds on the clock and stopped it. That's because if he did not step on the mat, he did not wrestle in the tournament. Am I right? And he would not be eligible for the NCAAs?
Yeah, and that was a tweak to the I don't know if it was a change, it was more of a tweak, because last year you could step on the mat, take an injury default, and then forfeit out. Well, that forfeit didn't count as a loss. Well, this year, the first forfeit after a default counts as a countable medical loss. So now it's like, well, and that they tweet, you have to step on the mat twice in your conference tournament to be eligible for an at-large berth. Whereas I'm going to blow the whistle once and I'm out, and I don't take an extra loss on it. And now the losses, the countable medical forfeits, and the defaults, they count against you. It's a loss. And now that was a weird situation where, you wouldn't have, during the regular season, you would just take that L. You didn't step on the mat. It would just be the countable medical loss. Well, now you've got to wrestle. The rule says you have to wrestle in your conference tournament twice. So hence we got 2 injury defaults, and, with low match counts, and, that's where one thing we're wrestling a lighter schedule. This is where if Carter had 40 matches this year and took 2 medical defaults, I think he'd be a top 3, top 4 seed. Although knowing that your conference tournament place is 15% of it now, and you got 0 place, you're not top 8, you don't default 8, you have 0 place. That's where he's hurt. So, the result here is a product of the system, which is a product of the system that created it. So, it's basically like a catch-22 of blame, if you want to put it that way. So, it's
and so that's why the what's his name from Michigan did not have to step on the mats on the finals, because he'd already had his matches.
Well, he wrestled. He got hurt and he took a loss for it.
Yeah,
right. He medically
but he didn't
forfeited out
have
of the
to
tournament.
step on. He did not have to
No,
step on.
he had already wrestled 2 matches. Yeah, he'd already wrestled enough matches.
So that's the criteria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with because everybody's the talk of the tournament and the seating's been Starachi for the most part, and other shows have gotten into real detail and minutia about that. So I encourage you, if you want to know more about the arguments about it, by all means, take those, because that's where they're spending a lot of their time. So.
And Jason, who set up the system? The coaches? Were they the ones that agreed on it?
It's the NCAA Wrestling Committee, which changes, and I don't have who they are in front of me.
That's
but
fine.
Championships and such, and it's just basically a lot of these rule changes get pushed through, or they get discussed at the convention, and then they get recommended by the coaches' leadership groups and such, and then that's how they get put into place. So, I still think even though it's got its flaws, it's still better than what we had prior to 2009. So.
No system's perfect.
That system, that system left 20 to 25 good guys home a year. So, all right.
Okay, now
So is the
next.
other one? There was two that were kind of Carter Starachi and then the Cornell 33-pounder, but he had two losses.
Right,
But
and they're
the
both
one
the same
guy,
guy who was undefeated. But again, it's
they don't count
not
last year.
Vito's match count was really low, so
Yeah,
you don't have a lot of wiggle room for error when you're wrestling under 15 matches a year. That's kind of what it says. That's not what
Okay.
it says literally, but that's kind of what you're seeing is put into practice is got to wrestle more matches. And yeah, that dings people who are hurt or who have been nagging injuries, but guess what? Nobody's healthy come March either.
yeah,
And one thing in wrestling is we think everybody's going to be wrestling the best version of themselves all the time. And that's just not true. So it's one of those things where, well, he only wrestled this many matches. Well, that means if he's not 100%, why should he be one if he's not wrestling the best? So, and that's not Vito specific. That's like anybody. You could say wrestler X is,
Yeah.
oh, he's 8-0, but he's coming off a torn ACL or he's got an MCL sprain or something like that. And it's like, well, yeah, he should be the one. Should he? Is he the best wrestler in the country right now? So again, that's a bar argument. That can't be
yeah.
argued with stats. That's the one thing that makes wrestling also great. You can't win that argument with stats, honestly.
Yeah, that's why I love the new seating system because it's a number driven thing and not
Yeah.
a debate. Okay, now could you explain to the viewers how the automatic qualifiers and the at large get into the tournament?
Yeah, we've got that. So if we want to jump into where that is, so we go to our table of contents. Like, how does this happen? Allocation and at-large bids. So there's a short version of it. It's all detailed here. So there's 3 criteria: win percentage, RPI, and coach's rank. If you hit 2 of the 3 criteria, you've qualified your conference. And allocation, they are released about a week before the conference tournaments. Each tournament, each school gets, each conference gets an allocation number, which is anywhere from 280 to 285 a year. What they do is you can see on the sliding scale on the bottom of the screen, they start with thresholds. So they start with 70% win percentage, 30 RPI, 30 coaches rank. They go down and see how many people hit those thresholds. If that's 35 people, then they move it up to 7, 10, 29, 29. Okay, now we're at 31 people. No, not yet. When we get to 27, 28, or 29, that is where they will set the threshold, and that determines, okay, that's how many are going to be allocated, and then this is how many are left over for at-large bids. So it's a sliding scale. It's by weight class because each weight has different everything. Every weight is its own moving monster. It's like, you want to talk about the basketball bracket? Yeah, it's 10 of those. We're looking at 77 to 78 guys, depending on, the year of eligibility. So that's how that works. And then the at-large, we look at the standards here again. On the screen, 25% is head-to-head, 20% is quality wins, and then we've got 15% conference tournament. Just like I said, they use the same criteria. All those come together, and those are the at-large standards. So also, if you earn an allocation, you're in the at-large pool. If you hit one of the criteria, bronze, silver, gold, you are in the at-large pool. And if you finish one spot behind a qualifying position, you are on the board. So if the Big Ten qualified, okay, let's use this for an example. Big Ten qualifies 8. Well, they wrestle a 9th place bracket to determine who is in that pool of eligible applicants for the at-large bid. So if you're 9th in the Big Ten, they take 8, you're in the pool to be considered. So that's how the at-larges are taken care of.
Thank you very much for that, Jason. How did we come up with it? I think it's been 33 people per weight class since like 09 or something. How did we get that number?
So I've got it bolded, you can see. So we've got in the early 50s, we've got a bunch of them. Now we got the most wrestlers we had, 394 in 1970.
Yep.
The most teams we
had.
had.
And the most teams we ever had, 1980 was 128.
128, that's correct. So, so as I spent all that time looking for it, it was right in front of my face. So, we did level out at 330. Now, it's actually been 330, I want to say, since about 92. Now, those numbers are a little off because there's forfeits and people that didn't make weight, and they didn't replace you. So, or there were the number of Division II, we got up to where the D2 and D3 qualifiers were grandfathered out. So post 91, we've been pretty consistent. So 92, I think, is where we started to see the most consistency. At least 327 and 330 is where we've been at since 1992.
Well,
Well,
thank you for that.
it makes a whole lot of sense. You got a 32 team bracket, and then somebody asked the question. Look, we've got really 33 really great. Well, we'll run a pigtail match, and it sounds like for the D3 D2, they got 2 pigtail matches.
Yeah, they also have 18 a bracket. So, and thing is, it used to be 16, but they weren't always equal either, where you had the old wild card system. So some years you'd have a bye into the quarterfinals, and then you'd have to win one match to be an All-American. So the one thing, 33 is weird. Do I think we could go with 32? Yeah. But do you want to take away that opportunity? That's the thing. We've now had a 33 seed place. So we've had a 32 guy in the blood round twice, and we've had a 33 seed place. So do we want to take that opportunity away? I don't think we can take things away once we already have them. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a great thing, Jason, because like you said, we have 33 guys per weight class, with a sport with about 81, 82 right now, depending who's all, active right now. And look at basketball. There's 68 of the 350 schools or whatever it is. It's 350, 360.
I think we're getting closer to 360 now. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's 360 now. Yeah. So it's definitely a much better opportunity where we're like, in the 40 range, they're 1/5. So, yeah, that's great. All right. Now,
all right.
Next
Who was
question.
the 33 that placed?
It was Wyatt Sheets.
Wyatt Sheets. That's right. I remember.
That's also in here. So if we go, so I also keep that. That'll jump around. So when we go to seed placement, unseeded history and historical performance, now we don't have seeds anymore, but I go back and I track what seeds or what people have placed that have been unseeded. Of course, we know we have unseeded champions, Matt Reese and Pat Smith. I'm not Pat Smith, Mark Branch. In those two, and then we've those are the two that we have. And what's interesting, Mark Branch beat another unseeded guy in the finals. He beat Laszlo Molnar, who was unseeded. Yeah. So, and we look at the seed performance. That's also on here. We also since we've gone to 33, I have a chart now which I'm eventually going to have to prune to just placers. So since 2019, when we went to 33, technically it's 32, and 33 doesn't have a seed, but we just call it the 33, just for argument's sake. But a ton of guys in the blood round that have been 17 to 33. But again, Vinny Zerbin was blood round last year as a 32. Where'd Wyatt go? Where he is. There he is. Wyatt Sheets, the 33. And actually, Wyatt was not even actually in the tournament. He was an alternate. He was added and then got slid into the 33 and came back and finished 8th. So that's also here in the guide. You can chart them since 2019, and then we have the top unseeded placements. Since they went to 79, which is I say we've seeded to 12, then we placed 8. So that's kind of where I use those benchmarks. There have been unseeded guys way back. So
I have a story for you about the Molnar Sheets bout when they met in the finals, and they were both unseeded. We've mentioned, Sandy and Ed Alvaretti already in the show. They announced right before the finals that from the research they had done at the time, that was the first time that ever happened. But they were just doing it on the fly. We didn't have the guide back then.
No, but guys like Jay Hammond and Gimp and the late Denny Deal, the late John Harmon, they were all there, and Jess Jess wasn't around here, but John Hoke and Ron Good. They're there. Those are J. Carl Guyman. They used to have a brain trust of people that were, if they didn't know. And that's another reason why I kind of created it is to keep people from like passing along information that they misremember. They may not be completely wrong, but they like misremember something or they forget somebody. So this is something that kind of helps cure the, I remember it was when Brandon Womack plays from Alabama. He's from Alabama for Cornell. He was like, first All-American from Alabama. No, that we can look that up really quickly. So putting it in paper and using it as a resource is gotten a lot of people to stop recycling bad information as well. That's another thing that I did this for.
All right, great. Jason, who votes on the OW? When do they vote? And why is it not announced during the TV broadcast?
Okay, it's not an official NCAA award. The NCAA doesn't announce that, doesn't award that. They never have. It's always been the Coaches Association. So now it's a digital vote. So this past weekend in Division Threes, Jim Grunwald, the head coach at Wheaton, is president of the D3 Coaches Association. So he's sitting there. They send the ballot out to all the coaches. They have to be done as soon as heavyweight's done. And they compile the votes and say, all right, okay, the OW, boom, for Division III was Chase Randall from the United States Coast Guard Academy, 133 pounds. It's all digital vote, and it's the coaches, one coach, one team. One team gets a vote, and boom, there you go. It's all digital these days. And it's not officially part of the NCAA championship, so it cannot be part of the formal championships. So this is where every year I have to say that lightly and to say it so it reminds people to just wait. Because we close these championships. What about OW? Well, guess what? I've been doing this since 06 or 16. You know this now. I've told you multiple times. So it's the same every year. It's always after the NCAA official awards are done. So that's how that's configured. By the way, every history of the OW, also in the book, something you can also not find. You can find that everywhere. But here's another thing. With the most falls in the least time, also not an NCAA award. Also presented by the NWCA, but we also have the statistics on who's got the most OWs and the standings, the all-time Gormley awards. Who, if you add them all to one tournament, who's got it the most? Daryl Peterson has the 5 fastest falls combined in NCAA history at 5 minutes and 31 seconds.
Wow.
I remember one of Brian's kids won it one year.
Yeah, Brent Jones, but he only got 2.
UVA.
Where is he at? Brent got 2 in 2010. 2 for a combined minute and 31. So Brent was also a chin whipper. So he definitely was a chin whipper.
He could definitely throw.
Let's get on to some little trivia numbers here. How many returning All-Americans are there this year?
There are, as of last count, that is on page. That's early in the book. That's something that always gets asked. And this is also more semantics that we get to it. Because 70 returning All-Americans. Now, here's the caveat, folks. This is not 70 returning place winners. Because that gray column you see on the screen, that is the COVID year where the NWCA announced first and second team and honorable mention. So, you are first or second team. You are in this list as an All-American returning. In the guide, when you see place winners and then you see All-Americans, there is a weird distinction there. Now, I may say, and actually we're getting to the point where we're almost seeing, so you'll hear Brian and I say, 4-time All-American, 3-time place winner. That is because they were a recipient of the All-American Honor Certificate in 2020 when there was no tournament. Factually, the NCAA also does not award All-Americans. The trophy you get does not say All-American. The plaque you get from the NWCA says All-American. That varies by sport. For basketball, for example, the Associated Press names the All-American team. Wrestling, because we wrestle 2 tournaments and have places, this is why our Coaches Association have tended to go with the place winners. The NJCAA, for example, though, the junior college, they actually award All-Americans, whereas they go top 5. The NWCA awards those other 3 All-American certificates. So the actual place we earn on the podium, we've commonly said All-American. Technically, it's not accurate. However, that's how wrestling has done it since 1928, and that is how we say it. So it is pretty much a foregone conclusion that when you hit top 8, you're an All-American because that is basically the precedent set. 2020 gave us something different. So, returning place winners, I do not know off the top of my head. Returning All-Americans, there are 70 of them.
So is that COVID year, that's got one more year to run?
Well,
because of the 6-year rule for that?
Well, everybody, the 2020 kids didn't get the extra year. You had to have wrestled in 2021 to get the extra year. So we're getting close. So, there's also, the thing is now it's not just the COVID year. It's like, the NCAA likes to, or whoever, they hand out red shirts like candy these days. So who knows who's going to get 6th and 7th years moving forward. Maybe a Miami football tight end with year 9.
Yeah, the Vols got a guy on the football team who's playing in his 7th year next year. So, okay, How many transfers have qualified this year, Jason?
Well, the transfer portal is an interesting thing. It's a topic that we get, and we will have right now 59. And this is a sheet that I actually had to update a couple different times since I first published it, because I found another one this morning that I had neglected to miss. I missed Edmund Ruth actually starting his career at Lehigh. So 59, the most in a weight class is 8 at 184, and then 8 at 149. So a couple wrestlers have transferred twice. Jet Strickenberger was at 2 junior colleges beforehand. Mitch Moore has been at Oklahoma and Virginia Tech. Austin Gomez, as we know, has been at Wisconsin and Iowa State. Boone McDermott was at Rutgers and Iowa Central before doing his grad year at Oregon State. And Will Feldkamp was at Clarion in Northern Illinois. So 59, but not 59 total transfers. 59 athletes. So,
Is it?
And that does not
three
count
times?
commitments. That's if you committed, because like Quinn Kinner, for example, committed to NC State, but went to Ohio State and then transferred to Rider.
What about Teskey?
Teskey's, I'm sure I got Teskey on here. Yep, Northern Iowa, Penn State. There we go. He's on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's 18%
I got to stop
of
naming
all
every name, because if I forget every name, I think I'm forgetting it. No, it's on there. You give me a heart attack, Kevin. Come on, man. No.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We're
So
just
they're all
trying to
on here.
improve the guide.
Yes, you are.
Eight-
Like I said, if you find an error.
18% of all qualifiers have transferred. That's interesting. Okay. Fill us in on the team poll, Jason. Who votes on that? Who compiles it? The team
So,
rankings
coaches
each poll.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is, again, wrestling is one of those things where we wrestle 90% of a schedule that doesn't mean anything in terms of its results. The individual results matter, but your dual meet doesn't mean anything for the NCAA championship. So, but because I coordinate the coaches poll and have coordinated it mostly since 2005, there were a year or two in between where I was in between jobs, or I was USA Wrestling, and I was Wrestling 411, and somebody else on the staff had done it. I've done it consistently since 2005. One coach per conference was the old way we did it. We did one voting coach per conference, and then we had a wild card voter. In some years, that wild card voter was me, basically in reserve, just to make sure if somebody missed their vote, I would fill in that vote. I don't do that anymore. It's been 15 years since I've done that. But now, since we got 7 conferences, it's 2 coaches per conference that vote. And this is put together. It's decided by the leadership group, which Jim Fallis heads up for the NWCA. They pick their 14 voters. Each week, I get the results. I send them out on a ballot. They digitally put the ballot in. It's a drag and drop. It's got every result all season long. It's got every result that week. It's got how the top 25 fared. Every school 1 through 78. And I did the 81. I did the transitional schools this year as well. And every result, their record for the year, what they did that week, who they won, who they lost to. If they lose, they're bolded in red. If they win, if they're against a ranked team, it's bolded. So that's how it's compiled. And you get 25 points for a first place vote. You get 1 for a 25th place vote. So on the screen and in the guide, you have all weeks of the coaches poll. So you can see Penn State was a wire-to-wire number 1. We'll also have some stats in there about how many different teams were ranked, how many different teams from different conferences and things like that. So, like, for example, polling related numbers. Again, I'm not going to give all this stuff away here on the show. Like 2 SoCon teams were in the top 25 for the last 2 weeks of the season. Campbell and App State were. So that's how the coaches poll works.
Well, thank you very much for that. All right. What coach has the most titles? Give us the top 3 coaches with titles.
Top 3 coaches. That's one of my favorite things about this, because we're creeping up on the history about it. So we look at the coaches that have won the most titles. Well, actually, let's ask, who do you think, Kevin? Who do you think has the most coaching titles? Let's start with that.
Gable.
Well, you'd be right. Dan Gable with 15. Second, Ed Gallagher with 11. And Cale is at 10. So Cale Sanderson could, with his loaded Penn State team this year, tie the legendary Ed Gallagher for second most titles all time. And Cale and I are 2 months apart in age. He is 2 months older than I am, so he will have potentially have 11 titles by the time he's 44. Gable retired at 47? I'm thinking so. He would actually have to go a little longer than Gable to break his record, but that's still, he could potentially break his record before he turns 50, which is freaking nightmarish to think about. Like from an anti-Penn State perspective, it's like nightmarish to be like, how the heck? That's amazing. Like nightmarishly good is what I'm saying here. So,
yeah. What
Yeah,
about what
and
coach is the most top?
that seemed like that was going to be an unbreakable record when he did it, when Gable did it.
Yep.
What coach is the most top 10 finishes?
Harold Nichols got 28. John Smith active at 26 is second. And in the guide, I have a list of this. And again, Boulder active. So you get an idea of who's still at it. You know, you sit there and look through and be like, oh, wow, Mark Manning's got 12 top 10 finishes at Nebraska. You know, these are things that when we get time to these coaches to retire and like the Hall of Fame, we'll go out and put them on, you know, ballots for distinguished member lists. Now we get like, yeah, these guys had X many, you know, only 11 teams have won a title. So it's not like championship coaches are going to have all these, oh, they won all these national titles. Well, there's only a few coaches that have won national titles in the grand scheme of things. So top 10 and top 4 finishes are stats that matter when it comes to that point.
Yeah, fill us in on what schools have won the most titles. Because, of course, Penn State's winning them all now, and Iowa was before that.
Well, that's pretty much 34 and counting in Oklahoma State. We got a nice little graphic that last year, in case you're wondering, which you're probably not, last year I did a Nintendo 8-bit kind of theme. That was a monster to try to do all the font formats. So I just stuck with basic fonts on the inside. We've got a comic book theme this year. But here's a little visual aid to tell you that Oklahoma's won 34, Iowa's won 24, Penn State at 11. So it's Cale's 10 plus the one back in 53. And Ross Bednick from Wrestle Chicago does all those cool graphic arts. He did this little vector image of the trophy. So playing around with some fun graphical elements here. So.
All right, let's get into some fun stuff here. What school has wrestlers from the most state? What college has wrestlers from the most states?
Because that's a stat, Glenn, that I thought about a couple years ago because, you know, one of the arguments is that Pennsylvania has so many qualifiers because there's so many colleges in Pennsylvania. And then the counter to that is, well, especially the folks from Iowa, the good wrestling folks from Iowa, per capita is the first thing. They love the per capita argument. And then there's, well, all the good schools are recruiting the Lehigh Valley and the WPIAL, like Pennsylvania's best wrestling states. Of course, all those schools are getting cherry picked. So there's so many different arguments. But so that kind of with the impetus to be like, well, how many schools have how many wrestlers? So it's one of those things where we got to go to our qualifiers. Glenn, if you know what page that is off the top of my head, because I'm sure
I know
right
both Nebraska and Virginia Tech have eight different states represented on the rosters.
There we go. I found it. So
I don't know the
wrestlers
page.
by home state. There we go. Total states by team. Yeah. Nebraska and Virginia Tech have 8. Iowa State has 7. Penn State has 7. So that's where we go. We could also look at another thing that's in the guide, multiple entries by high school. Now, I added this chart last year. It's called home state qualifiers by weight. So you can, if you want to make an all-star team of your states, here's who you're looking at versus thinking like, well, no, that kid. And this is, again, we've got boarding schools and such. Like Blair, for example, always throws the number off, and now more Blair and Wyoming Seminary, because they get kids that come there from out of state. Whatever you're listed at on your college bio, I am taking all subjectivity out of it. And it stinks sometimes because like Max Huntley, I knew was a Virginia kid, but for some reason he put Emerald Isle, North Carolina on his bio. So he was a North Carolina kid in the stats. And, you know, like, again, I want to take subjectivity out of the statistics. So you get an all-state team where you are listed. So if you went to Blair and you're from Jersey, of course you're Jersey. But if you went to Blair and you're from Pennsylvania, you're a Pennsylvania kid in this case. It's your hometown, not where your high school is.
And both Blair and Wyoming Seminary have 6 qualifiers, which leads the pack. That's a lot.
Arrowhead High School and Wyoming Seminary have a unique distinction. I'm adding this year too. And this is Ben Askren who's asked me, because these are 3 of his kids that wrestled his club. Arrowhead in Heartland, Wisconsin has 3 wrestlers at 165, including the top 2 seeds. So that is something that I looked, I was like, wow, that hasn't happened a whole lot. And then I look and Sem has 3 of them this year. Now, Arrowhead has the distinction of all 3 of those kids were on the same high school team at the same time. They were all high school teammates, whereas Kai Owen from Columbia didn't get to Sem until after Bo Bartlett had already left. So they were 3 guys from Wyoming Seminary at 141 with Owen, Bo Bartlett, and Lachlan McNeil. But they were not all teammates at the same time. They're also a boarding school where, oddly enough, McNeil's from Canada, Owen's from Florida, and Bartlett's from Arizona. Whereas Heartland Arrowheads, they're all from that area. Now, that did lead me down the rabbit hole of, well, I'm pretty sure, and I remember doing the Gray Simon show. We've got one more episode of that to go, and I'm looking at Gray and his history. In 1962, there were 4 Granby wrestlers in the draw at 115, and these were not 33-man brackets. You had Gray Simons, you had Okla Johnson from Michigan State. Gray was from Lock Haven, Okla Johnson from Michigan State, Bill Merriam from Lehigh, and Mike Grandstaff from Virginia Tech. Grandstaff and Gray were teammates until they redrew the lines. So Grandstaff went to Norview and actually beat Gray Simons in the state finals when Gray was a junior. So they were all teammates at one time until they redrew the line, and then Grandstaff ended up going to Norview. When Gray couldn't wrestle his senior year, his last semester senior year, because he had started high school early, he went from 8th grade to 9th grade, Bill Merriam won the state title in Gray's absence in the same spot in the lineup. So interesting thing where the guide takes you historically. I didn't know this when I started the year. And yeah, so Granby's got at least 4. I have not done the deep dive on every single school that's had 3 or 4 because I don't have high school data for every single qualifier ever, but I do have hometown data for every qualifier. So the high school data, I've got 90% of the finalists too. So that's something I may add to the guide. Do we have high school teammates that have ever met in the NCAA championship finals, Glenn? What do you think?
Yes, you told me that yesterday. We have TJ Williams beat.
Tony
help
Davis.
me out who he beat. Tony Davis. Thank you.
Yep. So
I did
that's
not know that until when you
It's
told me
not there
yesterday.
right now. So I'm writing that down to Mount Carmel. Let's add, let's see, Carmel 99.
Yeah, and then,
all right.
Of course, a couple years ago, the Fine Silvers from Duke had 2 sets of twins, 4 brothers, and the thing, did Sandersons ever have 4 of them at the same time?
No, there was the Cole and Kyler. The gap between those two are too much. Like Cole was done before I think I even started going to the Nationals, and then Kyler I covered him in high school. So yeah,
okay,
Kyler's
so
younger
that
than the
could
other
be.
3.
I mean, having 4 brothers is staggering. At the same tournament.
Yeah, now there are 8 sets of brothers in this tournament this year too. So if I'm beating you to that punch, but I'll save that one for if you actually look at the guide to see what it is. 1 set of twins, the Crooks, that are at different schools. And you have a set of brothers, the Stouts, in the same weight class. Also available in the guide.
Crooks. One's at Tech. Where's the other one?
Harvard.
The smart twin.
And real quick, this is something that I also wanted to point out. We talked about the data and stuff and the impetus. So the original wrestling guides ran till about 1982. I actually have there on screen a couple of them, the hard copies. They're not very big. They fit in your back pocket, and they sold for $1.50. This one's got Dan Gable on the cover from 1970, and this one's got Randy Batten from Chattanooga, 1977. So it was the rule book. The back of it was the rule book, and then the front of it were the results. So the Pac 8, Pac 8. It's lower than that now. The President's Athletic Conference, the Rocky Mountain, it was like every conference, Division I. Well, actually in 77, we had 3 divisions then. By the way, 50th year of Division II and Division III this year. So 50 years. So that's where that come from too, is where you've got all the stats and results. These things don't exist anymore. So that's also a little bit of my throwback to history. Granted, mine's a lot bigger. It's a full broadsheet. It's a full 8x1/2. These were like, you put 2 of these. I mean, that might be a sheet. I don't know. I'm putting them together. I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of where they come from as well. The idea for this as well.
Yeah. Now, last year the Nationals, of course, were in Tulsa, and I believe they said Tulsa's had 40. How many champs has the city of Tulsa had?
It was in last year's guide. I didn't put it in this year's guide. So.
I thought you had it in this year's guide.
No, I took Tulsa out.
Okay.
That was last year's.
Okay. Yeah, because that was.
Matter of fact, now you're going to make me look.
City,
search Tulsa and see what I get.
No, the city of Tulsa, how many national champions they've had?
Oh, yeah. That's in the book.
I didn't ask the question well.
Yeah, so last year I had, because Tulsa hosted last year. So that
that's why I brought it up, because they mentioned it.
Yeah, so Tulsa, that would be in the historical information. Where do we go with that? That's
it's some ridiculous
history.
number.
Yeah, it's a lot, and a lot of it has to do with the old Tulsa
48?
Central teams. Qualifier quick list. That is in the historical lists and records. There we go. Tulsa, Oklahoma has won 48 titles.
48. I thought it was 48.
Wrestlers.
It was,
Wow.
that,
Yeah, wrestlers from Tulsa.
that's
Oklahoma
such a
won
big
48
number.
titles.
I thought I was misremembering it because that's why I brought it up because I remember the last year when they made a big thing out of it.
Yeah, and a lot of it was obviously in the foundation years from 28 to like pre-World War II is kind of how we group the eras. It's the pre-World War II era, the post-World War II era, and then as some people call it, the Gable era, the freshman eligibility era. So basically, and then there's because that's the 4-year eligibility was at 69, which also learned 68. There were some freshmen eligible. It was a conference issue. I had a conversation with Dan Gable about this, about the late Chuck Jean, who won 2 titles at Iowa State, and then left Iowa State, ended up in the NAIA and won 2 titles there. He did not win as a freshman, though, but they changed the rule while Chuck was in college, and I'm not sure what the NAIA records were or eligibility were back in the 70s, but he got 2 more titles, and I believe they might have said, okay, well, you didn't get to wrestle there. You did it here, because for a while the NAIA had some interesting eligibility requirements anyway. It was semesters and whatnot. So Chuck Jean's 4-time national champ in 2 divisions, which is it's kind of leads to another thing we've got in the book this year, Glenn. We've got the total, it's always an argument, about the D2 and D3s that oh, well, they should do that. Now, that only happened for 17 years. It's not like that was a gigantic thing because we didn't have divisions until 1973-74. But one thing that I'm jumping to, and it might maybe not be a question, but it's the historical champions and such that go back in the day. So the non-Division I qualifier era, we know that we've got Carlton Hasselrig has got 6. Well, it's guys like Chuck Jean we miss out on because they were not in the NCAA. And prior to us going to the divisional format, the NAIA was a big place where Bloomsburg and the smaller schools in the Pennsylvania, Portland State was an NAIA school, for example. And you talk about the great Rick Sanders. Well, Gray Simons, who, again, I say I didn't wrestle in college, but he was a coach at Old Dominion when I was there. Call him my college coach just because it's easier for that. I don't have to explain that every single time. He won 7, 4 in the NAIA, 3 in the NCAA. So that is a new addition to the guide this year. It used to be just who's got, the Hasselrig stuff. We've got the Bakersfield guys from the era, of course, Tom Martucci and Ken Mallory, which are always the D3 guys that the D3 guys love to say, oh, well, back at Ken Mallory. Well, Ken Mallory did that 41 years ago, or 40-some years ago. Actually, now we're looking at 46 years ago. Jeez. So, it's not exactly recent memory, but those are other things that are added in the guide this year.
Yeah. Well, it's great. I'm glad you put something in there about Gray Simons, my old college coach. Now, one thing that's come up for a couple of years, I believe it started when Dake and Magic Man wrestled in the finals, that they put that bout last.
Mm-hmm.
How do we decide what weight starts in the finals and what goes last? How do we decide that, and who decides that?
That is pretty much a committee decision, and when we say committee, so there's there's the D1 Wrestling Committee, and Anthony Holman is the director of championships. So in some cases there'll be a discussion. It's more or less a conversation. It's not a vote, but it's like, what do we think? And they work with ESPN, and they work with the committee, and they work with the NCAA. If it makes sense, they'll change it. They'll change the start weight. If it doesn't, like it was a couple years, like you end with Gwizdowski and Snyder. You're wrestling heavyweight last. And if it's something where like, okay, well, 84, 97 in heavyweights, boom, boom, boom. There's also the situation where you got to look at the TV break in the middle too. You've got that. You got to think for television. You got to look at timing. You also got to look at press conference availability. Like if you change the order and you do like these massive ones where you're like, all right, we're going to wrestle them in this order. Well, you're crushing your press coverage. It's like they're all going to have to try to scramble. So this is where having them in weight class order and finding a starting weight is beneficial. So that is usually a day of decision. Or actually, I think it's made after the semifinals, as that's right, because I've been in that committee room where they're talking, and they usually are having that conversation after the semifinals are done.
Yeah, I just wish they would have wrestled Bo Nickel and Miles Martin last the year that Nickel pinned him, because whoever won that won the team title too.
We also can't. You don't know that after the semis because you've still got placement matches and consi semis. So those are the things you can't. Yeah. That's something like you can't. You got to give the wrestler and the coaching staff ample time to be able to prepare for the next day. So.
Oh yeah. I understand. It would have just been neat. Now, how do we determine where the NCAA tournament is? Who makes that decision? How does that happen? Like, why?
That's a bid process. Yeah, that's a bid process. So. I believe every 4 years there's bid cycles, and they put out requests for bids, and it's the CVBs, the sports commissions. They put the bid out, and the NCAA for the last several years, actually going back to when I was at Intermat, they do it in four-year chunks and do it for all the sports at the same time. So they come in, they decide, they look at the bid package, they look at transportation, location, facilities, amenities, cost for, looking where you can put a fan fest. There's a lot of those moving parts that come into it, but Anthony Holman's part of that process. He might be a good guest to get on in the future for some of these other questions. But yeah, it's a decision by the NCAA, and it's a bid. You can't put it places that don't want it. That's the one thing you got to thought. Well, you need to put it in Denver. Denver doesn't bid; they don't get it. If you don't want it, you don't get it. They're not going to put something someplace where people don't want it. So ultimately, that's where sometimes like USA Wrestling events. Well, we're going to do it here. Well, we put a bid process out. We got 3 people bid on it. Do we put it in Colorado Springs, keep it here, or do we send it to Enid, Oklahoma, or Fargo, or Fort Wayne? So a lot of these events that the places have to want it for it to be there.
Of course. Do you think we'll ever, like in 2020, it was supposed to be where the Vikings play football? You think we'll ever have in a football stadium again? Not that we have ever had.
I think we will.
Good.
Now, Northern Iowa back in, was it 97? That was on
that was a football
field, but that was not a football. That's an FCS side. I think that only seats comparable what an indoor arena does. It just has a big footprint with a football field in it. So
yeah, because it'd be nice if we would try it out at something like where the Vikings play, but sadly that didn't work. Kevin, fire away with some questions.
Kevin, you've been letting the bartender take everything.
Well, he's got the guy because he is the bartender, right? He settles all the bets. Well, we're looking at a team that's just been dominated for the past decade. I can't remember. I mean, I wrestled during the Gable era, but seeing a team this dominant, they placed 9 out of 10 in the top 3 in the Big Ten, which is just a phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And half of them are underclassmen. So, is there what's the history on having 5 national champs or 6 national champs in 1 year? And what is the record?
Yeah, 5 is the record. And I can tell you it's happened 3 times without actually pulling up the guide, but it's in the guide because these questions are so loaded. I love it, guys. So when we look at the history and who's done what, All-American, we go to multiple champs and team AAs by team. So this list shows you the only time there's been 10 All-Americans. Minnesota, 2001. Oddly, no champs. But then we look at the amount of teams, where to go. I just had it here. That was the one chart.
Yeah, we did a show on the greatest team.
Yeah,
and that's where I got all my data from.
But yeah, so the top national championships, of course, I'm going to screw this up.
Yeah, Oklahoma State did it one time.
Multiple champions by team.
Iowa and Penn State.
Yeah, 5. No, it's happened 5 times. It's happened Iowa 97, Iowa 86, Oklahoma State 05, Penn State in 22, Penn State in 17. Only twice has it been 5 champs and 8 All-Americans. That's Iowa both times. Oklahoma State had 7 All-Americans in 05. Penn State had 5 and 6 in 17 and 22. So I misspoke. It was actually 5, not 3. And that is available on page 148. So that's all. Then this list where you've had at least 1 champion and multiple All-Americans in a season, 155 times. Yeah, so multiple champions, multiple AAs, 155 times in history. So that's there.
So by the way, going along with that,
I also want to say, if you've got the digital guide, going back and forth, I've got a little footnote on every single page. It's in blue. It's the live link back to Track Wrestling. So at any point you need to pull up the brackets, you just tap it, boom. It's back to the brackets. Now, we'll say you might have 18 browser windows open by the end of the tournament with the same link over to Track Wrestling, but it's linked directly to the Division I live brackets for Track Wrestling on each page. So if you need to get back to the tournament data for this year and the live events, there's a link on every page for that.
That's a great...
Going along with that same question, what's the most points scored and who's done it? And has it changed because of changes in scoring?
Well, I'm 100% sure it's happened changes in the scoring because we've had superior decisions. We brought the addition to the technical
Yeah.
fall. We've had all of those things. I cannot tell you specifically when that rule change happened, but the History of Collegiate Wrestling by Jay Hammond, which you can buy from the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, has that all of its appendixes. I did not pull that type of information into the guide because, again, that's been published somewhere else. I don't want to sit there and bogart what Jay's work was. But when we look at the past team championships on there, that's a question you get. The largest spread was Iowa's 73 3/4 point victory over Oklahoma in 1986. So, and the team point record is 170, which was a 56.5 point spread in 97. So, 170 is the one people are talking about this year. Can Penn State break the record? Can they get 10 All-Americans for just the second time in NCAA wrestling history that anybody's got that number? So, we mentioned Minnesota, but yeah, those spreads are available. Those the anything over 44 is also in the guide. Early in the book, too. So, because that's a big talk.
Yeah, Penn State's one guy that didn't place in the Big Tens is a 3-time champion because he didn't wrestle.
Interesting. Yeah. The way you said that just sounds weird. Even though we all know, like, we know what happened, but it's like to say it like that, it's like you're not factually incorrect. So,
yeah, that's how good that team is. The worst guy in the team's a 3-time champ at the Big Ten.
I wouldn't say it like that though.
No, I'm being facetious with the whole thing, with the whole number thing. I was just saying how good they're going to be this year.
Ooh, I got to knock on wood for that. I watching the Big Tens, it was just phenomenal to me how well prepared those kids were and just how much growth there was in the last month of the season. Just, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's the first Big Tens I've announced. And then, it's the second one I've been to. I was only on the second day a couple years ago, but yeah, that was impressive. What's also crazy is being down on the floor, and then seeing the interaction with these coaches and the officials. And it's just, wow.
All right, guys,
that's all I got to say. Wow.
Let me say something here. We've gone on a little bit here, and I'm all excited about starting to get out to Kansas City for this. So I said we put a bow on this thing and wrap it up. And I'm going to let Jason finish since this was his baby. But go ahead, Jason. Let's wrap it up real quick.
All right. So, again, I've had the table of contents on the screen the entire time, pretty much. This is, again, to show you what is in here. We weren't going to go through every single thing. We weren't going to ask questions about every single thing. This is just basically the overview of here's what's in this. WrestlingPreviewGuide.com. On the discount code, when you go add to cart, and then to go to checkout. Now, it's on the right side. I did have one fan didn't see where the promo code went, and it's right underneath. Actually, let me see if I've got that screenshot available. I can maybe describe it. Can I pull it up on screen? Probably not pull it up on screen because I didn't prepare for that. But yeah, so when you hit add to cart, you go to checkout. It's a checkout. You enter your email, and then it's like, okay, I'm ordering this as a company business. But on the right side, where it has order summary, it has discount code. You enter Matt Stats. It's one word, but it's not case sensitive. So you can type Matt Stats, one word. That will take $10 off. So you'll get it for 20 instead of 30. And it's digitally delivered. This is not a hard copy product. Now there's a couple that I'd make for the table. So if you see that, you're not getting that. But it's a digital product. It'll be delivered to your email. Now, when there are updates, somebody finds a typo or something, I will send out an email that there is a new update. Here's the thing. I will tell you what page that update is and what the error is. So if you don't want to re-download it because it's something you really don't care about, you are free not to download it. So it's basically, I'm giving you the update. So anyway, discount code, you click continue, you hit the payment thing. It's either PayPal or you can do PayPal or your credit card, which is processed through Stripe. It's all secure. So that's how that is. It'll be digitally delivered on Tuesday, March 19th. You can buy it all the way through, and then it'll be open to buy at the end of the tournament as well if you want it for a yearbook, those type of things. So it's a $30 retail, 258 pages, maybe more. I'm still sitting there trying to think, should I add the Joe Williams or the TJ Williams, Tony Davis thing to it? I need to probably add the matrix on seating and such after we just talked about it here. I got a couple gaps in some pages I can do there. So WrestlingPreviewGuide.com. Use promo code MattStats. Save $10 on it. And again, it's something that, again, if you see on screen, that's the table. That's how much stuff is in there. Actually, the last thing, the one thing we didn't do is for those that are unsure, when you jump through, here's what's in every section. I forgot one of the most important things about this. It's not just history. Each weight, I give the top seed a spot. Some overarching stats about the weight class. And then this is the nuts and bolts of it. Every single wrestler, bio information, how they qualified, their record, hometown, high school, their year in school, how many times they've been to the tournament, what their record is all time in the NCAA tournament, their record versus the teams or the wrestlers in the tournament, their record versus starters all year long, their bonus victories, their bonus percentage, the number of high school titles they've won, how many Fargo medals they've won, the big board ranking on Willie's Mat Scout Stunt, their pronunciation, and every match they've wrestled against a Division I opponent this season. Boom, right there. The entire back half, every single wrestler in the tournament, not to mention 160 pages of history you cannot find in one place anywhere else. So that's what it is. And of course, it's a big comic book theme this year. So we got the year, volume 92 of the NCAA championships. This is the 12th year I've done it. It's the guide, wrestlingpreviewguide.com. MattStats is your discount code to save you $10. That's what's in it. That's why I did. The back half of this thing is where the gold is. The history's great, but the back half is what you're going to sit there arguing your bets with. That's what I got.
Guys, thank you so much. Jason, we look forward to hearing you all weekend with Bryant Hazard. And Kevin and I will be rooting for you guys in the suite and love to see the matches. On behalf of Kevin and Jason, I'm Glenn Gormley from MatchStats. See everyone in Kansas City.